Welcome to the Future Sense, the channel dedicated to helping everyday people take control of their money and work toward financial freedom. Today, we're diving into a topic that touches every single American. Whether you're a college student juggling tuition and ramen noodles, a small business owner watching your bills stack up, or someone living paycheck to paycheck and wondering how far your dollars will stretch this month, inflation. It's one of those invisible forces that feels abstract when economists talk about it in percentages and graphs, but its effects hit hard in the real world, at the grocery store, at the gas pump, and in your monthly rent. Picture this. You wake up tomorrow and your usual morning coffee costs $12. Not because it's some exotic new flavor, but because the value of your dollar quietly slipped away overnight. That's inflation, a slow, relentless erosion of purchasing power that rarely makes headlines until it's already reshaping your day-to-day life. It's the reason a grocery cart full of basics now costs more than it did last year, why utility bills climb, and why saving money sometimes feels like running uphill. Inflation isn't just numbers on a chart. It's real, tangible, and personal. But here's the thing. Understanding inflation doesn't have to be complicated or scary. Over the next several minutes, we'll break it down piece by piece. We'll explore where inflation comes from, why it seems to keep coming back, and what history teaches us about the times when it spirals out of control and the times when it's just part of the normal economic cycle. Most importantly, we'll talk about what you can do to protect yourself and even leverage inflation to your advantage. By the end of this deep dive, you won't just know what inflation is, you'll understand how it touches your life, why it matters, and how to stay ahead of it. You'll leave feeling less like a bystander to economic forces and more like someone in the driver's seat of their financial future, ready to navigate the invisible currents of rising prices with clarity and confidence. Inflation wasn't always a constant pressure in people's lives. In the ancient world, money wasn't printed, it was pulled from the earth. Gold, silver, bronze, and copper were the economy, and the supply of money could only grow as fast as miners could dig it out. That natural limit kept prices steady for centuries. A loaf of bread in ancient Egypt cost nearly the same across generations because money itself was scarce, stable, and slow to change. But eventually, rulers discovered a loophole. They started tampering with the very money people trusted, shaving coins, diluting silver, and mixing in cheaper metals while keeping the same face value. Suddenly, a coin that once held pure silver barely held half. People needed more coins to buy the same goods, and the slow creep of inflation began long before the word even existed. As confidence faded and prices climbed, the pattern became unmistakable. Whenever leaders expanded the money supply faster than their economies grew, inflation followed like a shadow. It didn't matter whether coins were shaved, stretched, or secretly weakened. The result was always rising prices. Jump forward to the 1770s. America was fighting for its independence, and the war demanded more money than the colonies had in gold or silver. Their solution was the Continental, the first major American paper currency. At first, it worked. It funded soldiers and supplies. But soon, Congress flooded the economy with more notes than the young nation could support. Prices doubled, then tripled. The value of money shrank as fast as the war dragged on. By the end of the war, Americans joked that something wasn't worth a Continental. It was a punchline rooted in economic disaster, a reminder that when money loses trust, it loses value. The same mistake returned during the Civil War. Both the Union and the Confederacy printed money aggressively, but the South went into overdrive. Confederate dollars became so worthless that by 1865, piles of bills were cheaper than firewood. One historian said the money was worth less than the dirt beneath it. Even the Union felt the pressure, with prices rising sharply as printed money outpaced what the economy could produce. In the early 1900s, the Federal Reserve was created to keep the financial system stable. But even with the Fed's oversight, inflation continued to rise and fall with major global events. World War I drove prices upward. The Great Depression did the opposite, plunging them downward. Then World War II reignited inflation, forcing the government to ration goods and limit wages just to keep the economy under control. And then came the 1970s, the decade that taught modern America what runaway inflation really feels like. Oil shocks, global instability, and rapid money expansion created a self-feeding loop. Businesses raised prices because they expected costs to rise. Workers demanded higher wages because they expected prices to rise. By 1980, inflation hit 13.5%, mortgage rates neared 20%, and it took sky-high interest rates and a painful recession to finally stop it. Today, inflation hits Americans in the most painful places, the essentials: housing, groceries, healthcare, gas, utilities. Everything that keeps life moving now costs more than ever. And every trip to the store or bill in the mailbox feels like another reminder that the basics of survival are slipping further out of reach. And even when inflation slows, the prices don't come back down. Corporations raise prices, and they almost never lower them. That's why your grocery bill never shrinks, your takeout order never gets cheaper, and low inflation still feels like you're losing ground every month. Rent is one of today's biggest financial pressure points. In countless cities, rent has doubled in just a decade, squeezing the 60% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck and turning what used to be a stepping stone into a massive monthly burden that's nearly impossible to escape. A major reason inflation feels unbearable is that wages simply haven't kept up. Since the early 2000s, the price of essentials, food, housing, childcare, transportation, has climbed far faster than the incomes meant to pay for them, leaving millions working harder yet falling further behind. Housing affordability has collapsed in a way America hasn't seen in generations. A starter home used to cost 2 to 3 times the average annual income. Today, that number is 6 to 8 times, or even higher, putting the idea of home ownership out of reach for an entire generation. And as prices climb, the dollar itself quietly weakens. A single dollar from the year 2000 now only buys what about 60 cents can buy today. It's a slow, silent erosion of purchasing power that affects every budget, every paycheck, and every financial goal. Inflation isn't just a financial problem, it's an emotional one. You put the same groceries in your cart that you always do, but the bill jumps by $40. It feels unfair, disorienting, and frustrating, like the rules changed while you weren't looking. Or you stop to fill your tank and feel your stomach drop as the price climbs higher and higher. Even predictable inflation feels sudden because our minds adjust slowly, while prices seem to rise overnight. And that's the psychological trap of inflation. Our brains cling to old price memories, making every new bill or receipt feel like a shock. The world gets more expensive long before our expectations catch up. And behind all of this is a tangled web of causes: supply chain delays, wage pressures, corporations raising prices early, federal spending, deficits, central bank policies, and even consumer expectations feeding the cycle. Modern inflation isn't just too much money printing. It's a multi-layered, many-headed monster reacting to every tremor in the global economy. If we look back across civilizations, from ancient empires to modern nations, one lesson stands out clearly. Whenever the supply of money grows faster than the production of goods and services, inflation inevitably follows. It's a pattern repeated over centuries, showing that money doesn't exist in isolation. Its value depends on balance, discipline, and the economy's underlying strength. History teaches us another hard truth: inflation rarely, if ever, corrects itself naturally. It doesn't simply disappear or fix itself over time. Tackling it requires deliberate action, careful policy decisions, and sometimes painful adjustments that affect everyday life. Leaders must make choices that can be politically difficult but economically necessary, because leaving inflation unchecked can erode savings, disrupt markets, and strain the very fabric of society. Yet here's the silver lining. No matter how chaotic or challenging the national economy becomes, individuals always have the power to prepare. Everyday Americans can take proactive steps, from understanding their finances to building resilient strategies that provide real protection against the effects of inflation. While we can't control the broader economic tides, we can control how we navigate them, and that makes all the difference. Here's what most people are never told. You can't control inflation, but you can control how you respond to it. And that response often determines whether inflation quietly erodes your life or becomes a challenge you're prepared to face. Inflation is a force that operates in the background, but your actions decide how much damage it actually does. The first line of defense is building a cash buffer. This isn't about getting rich overnight. It's about stability. Even small, consistent weekly contributions create a financial shock absorber that helps you handle rising prices, unexpected bills, or temporary income disruptions without panic, stress, or high-interest debt. That buffer buys you time, and time is power when prices are climbing. The next step is putting your money to work in productive assets. Cash sitting still slowly loses value during inflation, but historically, broad market index funds, retirement accounts, and well-diversified stock portfolios have grown faster than inflation over the long run. These assets represent ownership in real businesses that raise prices, increase profits, and adapt to changing economic conditions, meaning your money has a chance to grow instead of shrink. While investing doesn't eliminate risk, doing nothing guarantees that inflation will win over time. Equally important is avoiding lifestyle inflation. When your income increases, it's tempting to immediately upgrade your car, your home, or your spending habits. But inflation already increases your costs without asking permission. If every raise is matched with higher spending, you stay in the same financial position, just with bigger numbers. Real progress happens when income grows faster than expenses, allowing you to save, invest, and build margin into your life instead of living on a tighter treadmill. You also need to track your personal inflation rate, because inflation doesn't hit everyone equally. Official statistics don't pay your bills, you do. If rent, groceries, fuel, insurance, and transportation make up most of your budget, then those price increases matter far more to you than abstract averages. Knowing exactly where your money goes helps you make smarter adjustments, cut costs strategically, and focus on the expenses that have the biggest impact on your financial survival. Finally, the strongest and most reliable defense against inflation is increasing your skills. Higher income skills give you leverage that savings alone can't. Skills that solve real problems, create value, or improve efficiency tend to grow in demand, even when the dollar weakens. While prices rise and currency loses purchasing power, valuable skills compound, opening doors to higher income, better opportunities, and greater control over your financial future. In a world where money changes and prices rise, skills remain one of the few assets that inflation can't easily erode. Inflation teaches a quiet but powerful truth that most people only discover the hard way. Money itself can lose value, but skills don't, knowledge doesn't, and discipline doesn't. And those are the assets inflation can never touch or take away. Prices may rise, currencies may weaken, and markets may swing, but what you know, what you can do, and how you manage your behavior continue to compound for you over a lifetime. This is why learning how money works matters just as much as earning it, because understanding gives you options, confidence, and control in an uncertain world. As Henry David Thoreau once said, wealth is the ability to fully experience life. And the more clearly you understand money, the more freedom you gain to experience life on your own terms, without constant stress, panic, or fear about the next bill or the next price increase. Thank you so much for watching. If this video helped you understand inflation in a new way, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who could use clarity right now. Protect your dollars, invest in yourself, keep growing your skills, and most importantly, take control of your financial future. Remember, small, consistent steps lead to big results. See you in the next video.